All right, we're good. So today's session, everybody, we're going to talk about threat and spacing. And so I was asked specifically to do this as I play a lot of AD carry. And obviously being aware of your threat ranges and standing in the right spot is really, really important. Before we get started, though, I do want to point out that this coaching session is going to be very specific actually to lane phase, which I mean, a lot of people, when they think threat and spacing, they think, oh, it's got to be team fight, especially for an AD carry. You got to space right in team fights. You got to be aware of threats in team fights. Of course you do. But if you have done threat and spacing properly throughout your entire lane phase, you should be so far ahead already that the team fight isn't actually as crucial. As weird as that might sound, most people are not doing spacing correctly and are not paying attention to their threat range correctly in lane phase, actually. They worry about it in team fights, but they're not ahead enough in the team fight because they haven't been paying attention to it in lane phase. So we're going to look at this from a lane phase perspective first. All of these ideas still apply to team fights, but team fights are way more chaotic. So if you look at it from lane phase, it makes it a lot easier to identify the things you are doing right and wrong because you've only got one, or if you're in bottom lane, two people to worry about and deal with. So let's hop in. So hello, I'm Chris Burns. Little background on me. I peaked Plat 1 many moons ago. I've spent most of my League of Legends time now coaching a high school team here in Canada. I've also got a couple young kids. I'm working on my master's, so I just haven't been putting the time in to grind the queue. I am currently maining AD carry, so that's a little bit about me. Right now I'm sitting in gold somewhere. I think I'm gold 4 actually. I should play more League. But yeah, that's my background. My favorite emotes. Some of my students screen captured me making that face during a stream, and I turned it into one of my Twitch emotes, so good times. So let's talk about threat and spacing. Start with the very basics here. So first of all, what the heck is threat and spacing? Threat is just the area around a champion where they can deal damage or otherwise impact a game. So this would include your auto attacks, your spells. It's impacted by minions, mobility, and cooldowns. So what I mean by that is, like, this is kind of extreme example. We look at Fizz. His alt range, right, has 3 different threat ranges. But if you were to look at anything, they've got an auto attack range, and they've probably got a spell range, and they might have something that's even longer in terms of, like, Twitch has Fizz, sorry, has this really long alt range, for example. But this threat range of his changes, right? If he throws this shark out and he misses, his threat range has now dropped to basically his Q. But keep in mind, he has mobility, right? If he has his E up, his actual Q range is actually probably closer to this outer circle because he could jump forward onto the pole, jump forward at you, and then Q. He's actually got a longer threat range because of his mobility. Your threat range also is impacted by minions. Let's say I'm playing against an Ezreal. If I am opposite the Ezreal, like across a minion wave from the Ezreal, his threat range stops at those minions because all of his abilities basically are going to hit those minions, except for that little loop thing he throws that does extra damage. But if everything else is blocked, his threat range is reduced because of minions. So where people can do damage and how far they can do damage, that's your threat range. From an AD carry perspective, mainly it's your auto attack range because that's where most of your damage comes from. But for mid lane or top lane, it is also your spells. And when we talk about spacing, what we're talking about is standing in places where you minimize the enemy's threat but maximize your own. So if you look at this picture down here, you can see that Caitlyn and Ryze are standing in each other's threat range, right? There's no advantage here to either champion. Well, okay, I shouldn't say no advantage. Ryze has a huge advantage here because Caitlyn's at half health and he is a mage who has a point and click root if he uses it correctly. So this is not good spacing by our Caitlyn. Caitlyn should be back here, like 50 units. Doesn't make a huge difference, but it forces Ryze to make a decision. If Ryze wants to trade, he has to walk further forward into the minion wave, maybe take some damage from it. Or he can stay back there, Caitlyn's safe and could maybe farm with a Q if she really needs to thin that wave. But like, this is not a position you want to be in. This is bad spacing. You're walking forward, worst case scenario, you die. Best case scenario, you take a bad trade and don't get to farm this wave later. So considerations for your spacing, where the minions are, and if you can deny the enemy laner efficient use of their skills. So we're going to talk about skill efficiency in a little bit as well. So first thing, threat. How do we figure out threat range? How do we know, like, what I'm worried about? So if you want to calculate threat, here's the things that go through your mind really quick. What's the enemy auto attack range? especially if I'm an AD carry that's crucial. Am I up against Caitlyn or basically anyone else, right? Caitlyn's got a huge auto attack range. I have to make sure I'm aware of that. If I'm against like a Tristana, that's a crazy low auto attack range early on. What is the range of the most impactful spell currently off cooldown? If they've got a Leona support or a Blitzcrank support, those both have crazy impactful spells. The Blitzcrank pull or the Leona root into stun combo. What is the range of that? If I'm inside that range, I'm putting myself in danger. Do they have mobility that you need to consider? Right? So if I'm at low-ish health, let's say I'm at a third health and I'm greeting, I'm staying to take an extra couple CS, it's a cannon wave about to crash, I want to farm that before I back something. Is there flash up? If their flash is up, you have to consider that in your threat calculation. If they can flash root you, or if Leona can flash E you, you're dead. So make sure you consider mobility, and some of them are mobility stuff like flash, but some are mobility things like abilities, a Lucian dash, the Fizz troll pull, stuff like that. Is the threat range impacted by minions? Again, Blitzcrank's threat range, hugely impacted by minions. I stand opposite him, so there's minions between us, I'm safe. Leona's threat range, not impacted by minions. Her E goes right through minions. So this depends on who you're playing against. You have to have a little bit of game knowledge here. I can't teach you everything there is to know about every champion, but as you play a role, you'll get used to kind of what the meta matchups are. And lastly, what is the minion lane state? This is more important in the first, 4 or 5 levels here, but if you have a big wave, you can afford to take a slightly worse trade if they're in your minion wave. Your minions will tilt that in your favor. If they have a huge wave, don't trade at all. Don't even think about standing in the threat range. Stand back. Let it come to you. You can farm that under a turret. You can get that CS. And then bounce the wave back and try to trade when you have advantages. So pay attention to your minion lane state. All these things are going to come into play when considering how you're going to open the lane, where you're going to position, what you're going to do, are you going to push for level 2 or not, what is your plan, and what your spacing looks like. Do I want to trade with this person toe-to-toe? Can I trade for free if I have a better threat range? Do I have to be careful of taking free harass if I have a worse threat range? So this is the stuff you got to think about. Again, most impactful ability, really important. You're looking at Ryze here. Ryze's Q all the way to the outer circle, really not his most impactful ability. It pokes, it's annoying, but it's blocked by minions, it's on a fairly low cooldown, but if he spams it, eventually he'll run out of mana. EW is the threat range you really got to watch for. If you step into that range, you're getting stunned and then queued and then autoed, and there's nothing you can do about it. Especially if your threat range isn't the same distance as his, that's going to land. And so as soon as either of these is on cooldown, let's say he uses his EQ to clear a wave, his threat range has just dropped to basically where this indicator is. Yeah, he can hit you with W. It'll be a slow. That's all he's got though. And so threat ranges are constantly changing in-game. Paying attention to impactful abilities and when they go on cooldown is huge for your ability to skirt in and out of threat range and get off good trades when they can't really do much back to you. There's also, again, obviously the impact of cooldown. Victor, terrifying from very long range. His Q has a lot of damage. His E does a lot of damage. Like, you can't trade in Q range because he gets the shield back. It's an empowered auto, basically. And his E is long range. But all of this goes on long cooldown. So unlike Ryze, whose Q is basically always up, Victor is especially when you can abuse when these are off cooldown. If he wants to use his abilities to push a wave, you have a massive window to move in up to this indicator and hard trade with him, depending, no matter who you are. That's a free, you got, 10 seconds, maybe not even 10, maybe 8 seconds of trading time, but that's an eternity in League of Legends. He blows an E, he uses a Q, you're like, oh, sweet. Once that Q is down, I can walk almost right up to Victor and go toe-to-toe with him, and I'm good to go. So do track cooldowns of impactful spells. It's huge. And so this leads to us having 2 lane states. Either you're aggressive or you're passive. And this isn't going to be all the time. You don't oh, I'm an aggressive player. I always play aggressive. You'll lose if you do that. You are in an aggressive lane state. And by that I mean if you're in a lane that's aggressive, you have a smaller threat range than your opponent. Or the game state is such that losing or an even trade, or losing or going even with a trade might be worth it for the enemy. So this would be something like, let's say I'm up against Caitlyn. She's an aggressive laner against every other AD carry. I have a smaller threat range than her, and let's say she's got a minion wave that's coming towards me, it's worth it for her to even take a slightly losing trade with me. So she should be playing aggressively here. If you are in a passive lane, this is when the enemy's got, wait, this is the same thing. This should be you have a higher threat range. This is the enemy has a higher threat range. There we go. I made this last night. So if you want to play aggressive, you need the higher threat range, or the game state is that losing or going even on your trade is worth it. If you're in a passive lane, that means the enemy's got the higher threat lane, or this is one where the advantage is coming your way. The big minion wave is coming to you. You've got a jungler on the way bottom. You don't want to trade right now. You don't want to put your abilities on cooldown. You should be playing passively. So identifying your lane state is going to be big. When I have an aggressive lane state, this is when you can go forward, you can take trades, you can look to space a little tighter. When it's passive, there's times you don't even want to be close to the enemy threat range. Let's just literally sit back and turret and let it come to me, because I'm going to use the advantage that's going to come my way at some point in the next 15 seconds. So let's say you're on aggressive spacing. Let's abuse your threat range. You're the Caitlyn in this case. Or you're the Xerath, or you're something with a big range if you're a mid laner. You're the ranged top laner in your matchup. So if you outrange the opponent, you want to always keep them just inside your threat range while standing outside of theirs. So ideally, if I'm Caitlyn, I position in such a way that the enemy AD carry is always in my auto attack range. I'm not auto attacking them. I'm just keeping them in my range. This is even more important for mages. Like, let's say I'm Orianna. I want them just inside my ball range all the time. If I walk forward into range every time I want to harass, I become super predictable. If they're always in my threat range, they have no idea when that ball's coming to hit them. And now again, this only works if you have the range advantage, or you can afford to go toe-to-toe with trades because you have some other advantage on your way. But if you stand just inside, or you keep the enemy just inside your threat range, so you're just outside their they can't do anything, and they can't predict when you're going to harass because you're always in range of you. General rule of thumb, don't trade CS for damage unless it's significant. If I'm going to trade one auto attack on an enemy for one CS, not worth it ever. If I'm a Ryze and I can get you with the EW combo, auto Q auto, maybe another Q walk away, and that's like a third to a half your health, that's probably worth it to lose a CS or two. Because that's going to give me enough advantage that I get free CS for the rest of the lane until they go home. Be careful with your wave control while harassing. Too many times I see Caitlyn's try to poke with Q and it goes through the entire wave. And hey, look at that, you broke the freeze you were trying to set up, and now I get to play passively for free. Your wave's coming to me anyways, I can sit back and collect all my farm later because you weren't careful with your wave control. So, especially in mid lane control mages, be very careful what you do with your abilities and how you harass. Always be ready to shift to a passive stance if you are aggressive. If you have information on the map that a jungler's coming, if the lane state changes for whatever reason, just make sure you shift to passive. Don't go aggressive all the time. More important, you're passive. It's going to happen in every lane where you have passive moments. How do you position safely? Your job is to stay just outside enemy threat range, usually. Don't be way in the back. If you stand just outside the enemy threat range, they want to harass. They will try to throw things at you. And if you're just outside range, or you duck in and out of their range really quickly, you can often bait them into throwing out those high cooldown abilities and giving you an advantage that you can now go on the aggressive with. So if you stay just outside their threat range, it'll bait abilities occasionally, it'll cause them to miss, it blows their mana, you're slowly working your way into a more aggressive state. Don't be worried about losing a couple CS. If you're on passive, there's going to be times when if you walk forward for CS, you're going to get chunked. So don't do it. Be fine with losing a couple, realizing that the lane will push to you, your jungle will come down, something's going to happen where the lane is going to swing to your advantage at some point. If you're doing this, they'll end up going on cooldown at some point. If you are not getting every CS, they're going to push the lane towards you. At some point, things will swing in your favor. So you might have to give up a couple CS. Just make sure you punish harder when you're on aggressive, in an aggressive setup. Again, always be ready to switch to aggro, right? Blitz throws his hook down. All of a sudden, a lot of their CC is gone in the bottom lane. You can switch to aggressive and go in. So if a big cooldown's spent, or the enemy makes a mistake, the enemy throws an ability and then walks forward, step forward, take it to a couple auto attacks, and then back up knowing that he's got his aggressive coming back when his ability comes off cooldown. And finally, again, patience is huge when you're in a passive lane. Allow the wave to come to you, bounce it back with an advantage so they can't fight you in your wave. Ping for a jungler if you need it, if you're getting pinned under a turret, but be patient and allow this to happen. When you're patient, other players make mistakes. But you really want to fight, right? I know you guys. I know me. I really want to fight, even in a passive lane. The only chance you've got is to use tethering. So the idea of as a tether is picture you've got the enemy on a leash, right? If the enemy really likes to use their trading advantage and likes to poke, then they're going to walk towards you every time they think they can attack you. So if they have the threat range advantage, they walk forward towards you to use it. So what you do is you take just a step backwards, so they're coming towards you, you're walking backwards. The second they change their mind and walk away, you walk towards them. This requires some micro skill. You've got to be quick. Because you're walking towards them, the enemy will see an opportunity and come back towards you to start trading again. The second they turn around, you back off. The idea is you stay just outside their range, but you jiggle them back and forth until they slowly walk into your minion wave. So if you could tether them back into your minion wave, now you can trade with them. If you're in the early games, even if they do a little more damage than you, if you actually get the trade off, your minions will win the trade for you. You get a little bit of aggression, but again, pay attention to your lane state, know if the jungler's coming, know if you should blow cooldowns, know if you're getting a gank, know all those things, pay attention to your map. But if you really want to fight when you can't go toe-to-toe with someone, you need help, and that's your minion wave. So use tethering, stand just outside their wave, or just outside their threat range, sorry, and walk them back into your minions. Keep giving them hope that they can get some poke off, and then drag them further back, and once they're in your wave, go for the trade. Of course, this relies on you having a wave, but that's your option. So that's all the threat ideas. How do we position to use all that information? So 3 things you need to know. Trading minion. Trading minion's the one that is about to die. You've got a trading minion, they've got a trading minion. If you have the advantage, if you're on an aggressive stance, threaten every single minion. So if you have a minion at low health, they're going to come to last hit it. When they do it, you auto attack them. Or even if you don't, you should be in position to. I mean, threaten it. You don't have to attack them. If you're going to lose a CS for one auto attack, again, not worth it, but that should be a negotiation you're making. You should negotiate for every minion where you're on the aggressive kind of posture. So don't let them get a single minion without getting harassed or giving you a minion back in return. Efficient trading. If the enemy is an AoE, do not stand in your wave. Just generally speaking, never stand in your wave. This allows for harass, it allows for lane control for the same mana cost. If I'm Caitlyn, I can harass you and push the minion with 1 Q. That's the ideal use of my ability. I want you pinned under a turret. So if you stand beside the wave, Caitlyn has to make a choice. Do I push the wave or do I try to harass? So if the enemy stands in their wave, you do the same thing. If you're trying to push, take these trades. So if you're trying to go for level 2, use your abilities anytime they're standing in their minion wave. It's harder to juke because they're stuck in minions, and it's more efficient because even if you miss, you're pushing the wave for yourself. So rule for you, don't stand in the wave. Rule for you, if the enemy's in the wave and you want to push, hit him. Last thing you need to know position are your pockets. These are the areas beside the wave where you can stand efficiently. Knowing which pocket to play and when to switch will help you position better. So we'll talk about pockets in a second here. So, trading minion specialty. You got threat advantage. Take every minion you can because they can't come forward and really contest you because you're aggressive. Poke them with autos when you don't have a minion about to die. A trading minion gives you windows for a huge impact. This is bigger for mid laners or top laners. Abilities take time to cast and they take time to travel. And they have cooldowns. Hitting one is crucial. You don't want to miss your skill shots. The trading minion gives you a window to guarantee your skill shot. When they come up to auto attack that minion, they can't move. They're locked into their auto attack animation. So if I am Ryze, for example, I'm going to position it such a way that when you come from your last hit, I throw my Q as you hit your last hit range. You're not going to be able to dodge because you physically can't move during it, and it guarantees hitting things. Really important for, again, skill shot champions. Don't trade one auto for a lost minion. If I can do more than one auto, it might be worth it, but one auto for one lost CS is not worth it. If you can't threaten, so let's say you're on passive, take whatever minions you can and look to sneak very short trades on the trading minion if you can get out after. So let's say I'm against a Caitlyn. Caitlyn's got a longer range than me. But if she's using her auto attack on a minion, and let's say I'm Lucian, I have the ability, as she's auto attacking that minion, to use my mobility to dash in, Auto Q, auto, walk away. That's it. So she's already used her auto attack on the minion. I get my combo off. I walk away. As I'm walking away, because of her bigger range, she'll still probably get to shoot me in the back. But that is an advantageous short trade for me. So you're basically wasting their first auto in the trade and giving you a short window to close the gap to make a trade if you have the ability to do it. So that's how you can use a trading minion. Again, for efficient trade, if you want lane control, use abilities to poke through the wave. You should never be standing in the wave because it gives the enemy the opportunity to do this whenever they want. If you want an enemy to shove to you, always stand diagonally across the wave. So if the wave's in the middle of the lane and the enemy's in the south side pocket, the bottom of the map, you would stand in the north side pocket. If they're trying to hit you, A, the wave is in the way, so they can't land their single target spells like Ezreal stuff. And if they want to shoot something like a Caitlyn, it's going to hit your entire minion wave. You don't get creep blocked while dodging. Easier for you to dodge, shoves the wave towards you, life is good. If you don't want them to shove, they're in south pocket, you take south pocket. Now they have, do I hit wave or do I hit you? So that's the idea of pockets. If you're in the wave, you don't have an option. Finally, pockets. We kind of talked a little bit about north and south pocket. If you're above the wave, that's your north pocket. If you're below, it's the south. If you want to harass an enemy, you pick the same size pocket. Same side pocket, sorry. So we'd both be south, we'd both be north. If I'm aggressive, I want to match pockets with them. That allows me to target them one-on-one while not pushing my wave, so I can freeze them out. If you want to shove, then pick the opposite side. If you're AoE, and you can shove and harass at the same time by picking the opposite pocket as well. Pocket choice is also influenced by jungler's position, especially if you're a mid laner. If you know the enemy jungler's top, you need to be in the south pocket, or you have to have wards on your north side. Always play the safest pocket that allows you to maintain your spacing. Whether you're passive or aggressive, play the side of the lane that lets you space the most efficiently while still having the option to engage or trade back when those windows show up. So look here, what do we got? Good or bad positioning. So this is level 1. It's a minute 39. This is probably the first minion wave here they're working on. So no one's going to hit level 2. You can see the lane state's just about even. Annie's up. They're actually in the same position relative to their minions, right? If I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, Yone's in the right spot. He's melee. He has no options here. If he walks forward to try and get these minions, Annie autos him for free. I would say Annie is in the wrong spot. You could tell by looking at Yone, he doesn't have his Q charge, so he has no range. Annie should be standing at the melee minions. Think about this. If Annie moves to where the melee minions are, Yasuo has to walk backwards or get auto attacked for free. Now, Annie doesn't have her stun up yet. So she might be considering, maybe Yone tries to all in when he hits level 2. I think this is still first wave. It would, yeah, it's for sure. It's minute 39. This is first wave. There's no way Yone's getting level 2 off this. Annie should be here. That moves Yasuo back, denies these farm, allows her to control the speed at which the lane pushes, guarantees her the level 2. And so considering stuff like that, and you can see they're both picking a pocket, right? One's north, outside the minion wave. One's south, outside the minion wave. But being opposite pocket against an Annie doesn't help because she's point and click. None of her stuff is blocked by minions. So in this case, if you are Yone, you recognize that I lose this push. I cannot take level 2 against Annie without losing all my health. And so what you try to do is you try to wait until she throws a Q out on a minion, or sneak up, use your Q to steal a minion back off. Take whatever CS you can manage to sneak, but don't try and shove the wave. It's not going to happen. You're hoping that Annie shoves the wave hard enough that you get to farm it under turret, hit your level 3. Once you've got mobility, now you have the aggressive stance because you can actually dash onto Annie and burst the second her stun's on cooldown. All right, one more. Let's scrub through this one real quick. Where are we? All right, so here we are coming to lane. Let's look at this from the Caitlyn Nami perspective here. So Sivir was already in lane, wasn't pushing anything. Just from looking at this, you've got a long cooldown. This is a Morgana. So you got a long cooldown, high impact thing to watch for. A shorter range AD carry, but has the long Q. High mana cost, but will wave clear and poke. And you've got Caitlyn, who's reliably auto attack range dangerous. And a Nami, who will support that and trade well. So this is a silver lane, a silver game. And so we're gonna take a look here and see where should we be positioning. I don't mind this opening. I think she should have got here in time to maybe shove this wave by hand and take advantage of it, but I guess she helped leash. So Q gets you all your minions, get some lane control. Let's see what happens. Morgana's in the bush, right? Which means her threat range is basically here, because these minions will block that skill shot. Caitlyn should take North Pocket, harass the Sivir for every minion. That gives Morgana no option. I mean, even Nami should be doing the same thing. You should be heading with your AD carry to look for trades. You're not going to trade one-on-one with a Morgana. You're not going to win that. Let's see what happens. She takes South Pocket, wards it. Okay, not a bad call. Now you're opening up an option. But you see what happened? Because she was in the wave, she wasn't North Pocket. I mean, that should have been dodgeable, but welcome to Silver. If she was North Pocket, there was no threat there. Having that vision allows you to choose if you want to use the South Pocket, but it's still a dangerous choice. I'd almost argue that's a wasted ward. If Morgana's in that bush, what are you going to do? You're not going to walk up. If she's not visible on the map, you know she's in that bush. Don't waste your ward. So now she's going to take a trade from Sivir. And I think that was, I'm not sure if that was the heal summoner or the Nami heal coming out there. I wasn't watching close enough, but you can see she walked forward into the Sivir, even off the bind, loses the trade because of the power of Nami's trading. And so let's reset and see where we end up standing here. All right, Caitlyn's finally moved into North Pocket. Yay! Sivir's in the wave. If I want level 2, what should I be doing as Caitlyn? Take 2 steps down, Q the entire wave and Sivir all at the same time. She might spell shield it, but who cares? You've still pushed the entire wave. Actually, no, she doesn't have spell shield, you know, because she's at level 1. Doesn't do it. So she's losing her push. There, she finally does it. But note that the Sivir had moved into North Pocket. Totally safe. Not as efficient as it could have been if she'd made that call sooner. Because she's playing North Pocket, Morgana misses the next bind. So you can see how the positioning of the AD carry is okay, but there's a lot of mistakes being made. Again, Sivir's playing aggressively. Caitlyn's playing as if this is a passive lane. This makes no sense. They're in the opposite of their roles. Morgana threw out her Q. She has no bind. You have more attack range. You have a trading support. This Caitlyn needs to be playing aggressive here. Like, the opening for this lane is stand at your casters and auto-attack her, like right here, trading minion. This minion's about to die. So your negotiation as a laner should be, do I give this to you for free? The answer is always no. What do I do? Do I hit this minion? Do I trade a minion? I can't. That one's not in kill range. So I should be autoing Sivir. Caitlyn needs to be in position to threaten this minion. She's going to give it to Sivir for free instead. Well, Sivir misses it because silver. Okay, boom, you got another trading minion. What do? You have an option. She is currently attempting to auto-attack the half-health caster minion instead of threatening this. She also has a Q up. You could take South Pocket with your vision, try to hit all the minions with the Q and poke when she gets the last hit, or you can trade auto for auto and then get that later. Instead, she gives up her minion for free and doesn't even auto-attack one, and then uses her Q for 1 minion. Oh, she got 2. Lucky. Inefficient. Standing in the wave again. Throws the bind. It clips somebody because they're not in North Pocket threatening. So you can see how this is labeled a tough match for this Caitlyn. This is not a tough match for the Caitlyn. Caitlyn is making this a tough match for the Caitlyn because her positioning is awful. She took South Pocket. There we go. So at least she knew that Morgana was on cooldown, switched to South Pocket to trade, but now she's back in her wave again. You can't threaten the Sivir if you're standing in your wave. There we go. You got 1 auto attack off. She's got a headshot. You should threaten that. Hey, she did. Fantastic. But now look, back to passive stance. Way behind things here. Morgana's Q's down. Go threaten, go threaten, go threaten. No, she's going to stand there and get poked by Sivir. And Sivir clears the wave as she's poking. I mean, I'm not saying Sivir's perfect here. I'm just looking at this from the Caitlyn point of view. Sivir's taking terrible trades against a support who's good at trading. But, like, you can see how many mistakes are being made in positioning. In just that, what was that, the opening of the lane, the first minute? It's crazy. People not taking advantage of the threat that they have, standing within their range, and picking the pocket where they can actually play safely. Oh, no, pause that. Next slide. There we go. So quick review of the concepts, we'll wrap things up. Threat is the range where a champion can hit an enemy. Try to keep the enemy inside your threat range and stay outside of theirs. These threat range change all the time based on cooldowns, though. Spacing and tethering, the act of staying in the ideal spot to maintain your threat, or manipulating your opponent to where you want them if they're hyper-focusing on their spacing. That's the tethering part, where you can drag them into where you want them. There's an aggressive lane state where you want to trade damage and position aggressively. There's a passive lane state where you're getting CS, waiting for an advantage, or waiting for a mistake to be made. Trading minion has to be watched. The minion on your team that's about to die, you should always consider harassing the enemy for this CS. If you're not harassing them, you should be taking something else. This is an advantage you can't give up, and most people give this one up on repeat. This is what makes you a strong laner. Efficient trades basically comes down to don't stand in the wave. If they're in the wave, you can push for free. If they're not in the wave, then you have to make a choice. So don't give them the choice of having an efficient trade with you in terms of like pressure in the lane. And finally, pockets, places you can stand to trade and farm most effectively while maintaining your spacing. Honestly, I think the biggest thing a lot of players can do is just work on not standing in their wave. Like even against someone who lands skill shots like a Morgana, don't be in the wave, be in the opposite pocket. If the Morgana is in the wave, she can't hit anything. She has to pick a pocket. Supports are usually pretty good at picking a pocket. AD carries not so much. Mid laners not so much. They're often standing in their waves. Pay attention to that and abuse it. It's efficient to trade for them, and it makes them harder to dodge. So if you play pockets, you'll see improved trading. So that's it. That's all I got. That's our brief overview to laning in terms of threat, positioning, spacing. The same concepts apply if you want to do this in a team fight, but it's way more complicated because now you're calculating for all of the enemy's major impactful abilities.
I have a question.
Yeah, what's up?
So, I was thinking like if I really wanted the wave to shove,
Yep.
like should I just stand in the middle of the wave? I know you said not to do that,
Yep.
but if I want them to push into me, would it be fine just to stand in the wave?
So let's say you're against the Caitlyn. Well, what position do you play?
Oh, I play mid.
Mid. Okay, so let's say you're against an Orianna, something that's AoE skill shots, and you have extra health to play with. You could afford to bait them into like, yeah, try to use that QW combo that does that big AoE slow. You could do that on me while I'm standing at my backline. In terms of efficiency, it'd be better to stand opposite pocket. But Orianna's a tricky one because you're not positioning relative to the champion, you're positioning relative to the ball, right? Because she has to reposition. So that might be one where standing in the wave could be the right call if you need it to shove to you for whatever reason. If you know you got a jungler coming and you need this wave to push, she's at half health, you're at full, you can afford to take a quarter of your health to allow the lane state to change. It's part of the calculation you can make. Again, it's League of Legends, man. None of these are hard and fast rules. If you could if you could hard and fast rule this, the game would be easy. But that's one where I think you're on the right track of, okay, I can afford to trade some health for a change of lane state that'll be advantageous later.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Any other ones, guys? All right, so then I guess I'd say if you want to work on this stuff, your big takeaway, things to work on, try not to stand in the wave unless, as Austin from Ball was saying there, you've got a plan in terms of I need lane state to change, I want them to hit the wave with something like an Orianna. Try not to stand in the wave and try to pick your pocket and try to pay attention to trading minions. It's crazy. You watch a VOD of your own game, just watch the first 4 waves and see if you are trading effectively and if you're in the right stance. You'll notice a lot of stuff. So that would be my recommendation for you guys in terms of improving threat and spacing. And again, these work for every lane. Am I inside their range? Am I outside? Are they outside my range? Am I threatening when they have cooldowns down? What am I doing here? So those are the ways to improve your laning in terms of threat and space.